So welcome everybody back here at Veil of Sound. We have somebody on the show who has performed at my favorite festival in 2024. And I wasn't able to attend for various personal reasons, but I heard from several people that this fine young man's performance was one of the more memorable in recent years. So I'm very, very happy to have King Joseph Pelletier here on the show. So thanks for joining.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
I'm glad that Roadburn is talked about fondly.
Yeah, as I said, a lot of people talked about it in a very, very positive way. So there must be something to it, I would say. So, Joseph, the first thing that we always ask is the plug of the day. You get a chance to plug a band, a project that is not your own, that you would like to shed some light on. I will start so that you have a moment to think. I want to plug something, or not something, somebody who I think should get a lot more attention, and that is Gazelle Twin.
Gazelle Twin. I feel like now I have to add that to my library.
I love it when I can teach people who are in that very scene that I could show you some. Gazelle Twin, an EBM producer, I think from the East Coast, and she does a lot of stuff, and she is really good, like really good.
This is starting to sound more familiar as we talk about it.
Yeah. So your chance to plug something that you want to shed some light on.
Yeah, I won't go Bleakhouse because that's like the easiest way is for me to be like, oh, band's on my own label. I'm gonna go with this band Nuclear Daisies. They're like, I would say broad term, they're shoegaze, but they have like a lot of like 90s UK like electronic music influence as well. Really cool production style. They just put out a brand new album, I think in August or July, but I've been listening to that a lot and they're super good. It's one of those bands where I'm like always surprised that they're not like way bigger than they are because the music's perfect, for like what it is.
Yeah.
So yeah, Nuclear Daisies.
Something, when I'm talking to somebody who was originally from the hip hop scene, of course, that question must be asked. If you talk about Nuclear Daisies, is that a band that you would like to collaborate with?
Oh, I would love to work with Nuclear Daisies. Yeah. I'm big fan of their work. And I think a lot of like the reason I resonate with it so much is because there's like ideas that I'm like, oh man, like, when I want to collaborate with somebody, it's generally because they beat me to an idea. And I'm like, that's so
thing,
cool.
Right?
Like, let's obviously we're synchronized in some way. Like we should make that happen together. So yeah, absolutely.
And then let's go to the new record, Spire of Fear, which was released through your own label, through Bleakhouse on August 15th this year. It's a record that is both things at the same time, which is unusual. It's a real grower, but it already starts at a very, very high level. So it's in football, in American football, you would say like it has a very high floor and the ceiling is even higher. So it's a real good record, and it does so because it ticks a lot of musical boxes. It is, in a way, a reflection of your very eclectic musical taste, isn't it?
Yeah. Thank you, by the way. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Yeah. I mean, it's funny now because it used to be like really conscientious, how I was going to like, oh, well, I want to take something from this. I want to take something from that. And now it's more just like, there's a feeling that I haven't achieved with a song. How do I get there? Yeah. And I just sit down and begin. And like, that's how I end up with songs like, Vicoctus is on the album, but Blue Morning's also on the album. And it's because like, those are two feelings that I felt like I had not reached yet with a song. So yeah, I think it's less like conscious now. It's more just like operate, It's just trusting myself. And this album was a really big execution of like, I set really strict parameters on time. which I've never done before.
Do you mean time that you have to invest in the program, or, for example, running time of a record?
In the program of like how much time I had leading up to recording the record and being done. Because I started demoing this album. We came home from tour last year at the end of May. Mm-hmm. I started demoing in June, and I had studio time scheduled for November.
So that's roughly 4.5 months.
Yep. And so from June until November, I was writing every single day. Like, I think I ended up with a total of, 70 demos for this album.
Okay, then the question must be, what do you do with the other roughly 60 demos that you haven't used?
I don't know. They just sit. They just weren't right. It just is what it is. I just got to keep moving. But in order to be able to do that and like get to the place where like, because as like end of September, October started rolling around, I was like, oh, I go to the studio like really, really soon. I'm not feeling like this album's done. It was a lot of trust. Like I had to be like, I've done this 1,000 times. Mm-hmm. I've played the shows. I've sat in the studio. I've sat in front of my desk. Like what I do is what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
And just follow that feeling. So that's how I ended up, with so many variations on the record is it's like, I tried to set the foreground with the last album that it was like, any direction I go is a direction that's for me, because that's the point. Like it's about the gratification of like what I want to do emotionally when I write a song versus like appealing to somebody, because if I came out the gate and there was like 7 commercial songs on it, everybody would be like, well, this is not really what you've never really done this before. So whereas this album feels like to me the next progression.
When you say you always look for progression, if you say that and if you stick to that, then those roughly 60 demos that you have must be thrown away, don't they?
Yeah. I generally don't look back. Like,
so you I mean, like, never say never, right? We don't know if in 10 years' time you look back on something that you have archived and say like, oh, there is something in there. But at this point in time, you are not about to uncover those demos and work with those.
Wow. No, the closest we'll get close-ish because like I did a lot of like ambient work for this record. It's like sprinkled throughout. So I've definitely thought about like a little companion piece, just like a extended play that kind of shows like, oh, here's like a full realized version of like the soft part in Molting Fear. Yeah. This is where that is pulled from. And like, there exists like a demo of Vicoctus where it's a completely different version of the song. Yeah. It's like a trip hop song with the same lyrics and acoustic guitar. And it's like very soft and somber. And that was like an idea. It was like, okay, well, maybe this song's not the right way. I'll try it this way. Yeah. And the first one was the right one. So there might be, in that regard, I might release some of that stuff. But for the most part, for me, it's like, everything's like a memory archive for me. And the way I wrote this album, I don't know if I could do that. Like I couldn't write those songs the way I already wrote them because I already did that in that time frame.
Yeah, and of course, the record has a certain time frame in which it was conceived, and that time frame itself, again, has a certain setting. And let's be honest, a lot of things have changed between November 2024 and now we're recording this at the very end of September 2025. A lot of things have changed, of course.
100%. Well, and like, leading up to being like, I got married this year, like a lot of really huge
congratulations
in my life. Thank you. I'll never be in the feeling of being, the age I was about to experience the things I was looking forward to when I wrote the album. So it'll just never happen that way again. So now I have to push.
And of course, also external factors, right? But we'll come to those in a moment. So what is striking about the record is not only its eclectic nature, but also the level of execution that you have given to it. I mean, like we're talking about 36 minutes and a few seconds. And I had a feeling as if you had cut the fat off the record as perfectly as one could, because if you have a lot of different stuff on a record, then all of these different things need their own time and space. but at the same time, of course, it has to be a cohesive record. How long did it take you to, I mean, like writing a song is one thing, putting those in a certain track list is another, and then seeing if you have to cut and rearrange other small bits. How long did it take you after writing, before you went in the studio? How much time was given to, okay, we have to cut a few things? And maybe also after you were in the studio.
Yeah, so there's two different sessions that happened here too with the studio. I think we went into like record instrumentation, I think with 16 tracks, maybe 15. I can't remember. And then that was November. December, I booked studio time in Portland for vocals. And I think that was a grand total of 2.5 weeks between December and January. And it was kind of in tandem. Like, you know, I write instrumentally first most of the time. Blue Morning's a song where I did not. I wrote that in tandem. But as I'm trying to write to something, if it's just not working, I'm like, okay, well, it's not on the album. And I try to not be too quick to do that, you know, because sometimes it's like, is it just hard, you know? Or is it not working?
Am I too lazy or too cowardly, or
exactly.
Is it really not working?
Yeah, which was like Wither was one of those songs where I really did not know. The back half of that song was tracked a couple days into the vocal sessions. The front half of that song was finished 2 days before I turned it in for mixing. So as I'm going though, like I'm pretty like the track list is one of the things I obsess about the most.
Yeah.
It is like the way an album flows, it's like a book, it's like a movie. Like if it does not get you to the next place and make sense, then it doesn't serve a purpose and it needs to go. So while we were recording vocals, you know, the feeling of the song would be pretty like apparent to me, obviously. And I was working on track list while I was recording vocals. So we would finish a demo for something. I would put it in a track list and I would listen through it at the end of the night and be like, that song doesn't go there. It has to move.
Yeah.
And then be like, okay, well, maybe when the vocals are on this song will take this song's place. So I spent a lot of time on the track list. Like that was a huge thing for me. Even just like, you know, my poor friends who are around me while I'm doing this are like seeing the, you know, the descent into hell that I'm putting myself through by being like, should there be 2 seconds or 1 second of time between these songs? You know, how long does it you need to feel?
How long has track A to resonate before track B can take over?
Yeah, exactly.
Or but is there no time in between?
Yeah. I mean, that was Glimmer to Vicoctus is specifically that. Like Glimmer is a very long, expansive, like deep, lots of atmosphere song. So I was like, as soon as that song ends, very little time straight into one of the most direct songs on the entire album.
Yeah.
But
I think that's also one of those things that makes the record really interesting. Because one can discover a lot of things within the tracks, then between the tracks, and also then on the record as a whole. For example, I don't know how sarcastic you are when the last track on a record is called Everything's Point of Origin. I'm like, so why is that not the opener when this is the point of origin?
Yeah, it's very sarcastic. You're like the only person who's talked to me about that yet. So I mean,
that's why you're here.
With you. Yeah, I haven't talked about this with anybody in any interviews and any press yet. But so the idea
does your wife know about whatever you're going to unravel?
Okay. Yeah, my friends know. People, and my wife knows. People around me know. But like publicly, I've not spoken about it very much. But you know, like my music's rooted in industrial.
Yeah.
But to like traditional industrial people,
yeah,
they do not generally like me. Because it doesn't sound like this, it doesn't sound like that. So Everything's Point of Origin is like kind of like a history. It's like archival work almost, but it's me poking fun through making music, because it starts with Industrial Introduction by Thron and Gristle. That's the first sample.
Yeah.
And then every 4 bars is a generation of industrial music until it eventually ends with my song.
I already see you and I will have to do another section where we dissect that track. Are you up for that?
Yeah, I'm down.
Okay. So everybody, when you're listening to this, Mr. Peltier and I will do another one where we go through that one track. And I bet we're going to talk an hour. But let's come to the position in the track. I mean, like, the track itself is really good. A lot of interesting stuff on there. But is it just the sarcastic Joseph who says, like, okay, let's put this at the end, like a very short cheek to everybody?
The point is that, like, okay, you just experienced the entire record in, like, my sonic palette.
Yeah.
And at the very end, all the people who are like, I don't like it, it's not real industrial. It's like, I just did real industrial. Like, I could do it all the time if I wanted to, because, like, that's where I come from. That's the music I love. I'm not going to do it on those terms, though. It's already been done. Like, I'm not going to. I understand the forefathers who came before me. You know, I know the people who carried the torch, like, and I have so much respect for them. But why would I want to make my album just sound like Ministry? Ministry already exists. Like, that's how genres die. So
yeah. I know what you mean.
So, like, the point is at the very end to be like, and the thing that nobody thinks I can do it, and it's completely fine for me to do it. But at the end of the day, I'm still going to do my thing. Mm-hmm. And that's why it's literally the front half is the archival work. It's showcasing all the styles. And then it ends with my song.
Something that I would like to know, because I looked at it on several platforms at the record, and on one of them, I think on Spotify, it says bonus. But in the original press kit that I got, it never mentioned that everything's point of origin is a bonus. So is that something where you, not maybe last minute, but close to last minute, said, okay, that is a cool way to end it? Or was it always intended to be there?
To me, it's always been intended to be there since it was recorded. But to me, it's like title track is the actual bookend.
Yeah.
And then everything's point of origin is like reading the, they're like, here's a sneak peek at the next book, or like, here's a little tidbit of like a chapter that was taken away,
Yeah, a cliffhanger or like a cutout, right?
Yeah, when the credits roll and there's a funny scene from the movie that they're like alluding. That's how it felt to me.
Yeah, I can understand that very well. Something that you also stress a lot is that this is a community record. Before we get into your own label, I like, you live in Portland, Oregon, and you're part of the Portland scene, and everybody out there who's not from Portland, me neither, but I think I understand the scene in a way, because the scene has a lot of elements that were there 30 years ago, but there is also a new Portland scene. So how much Portland is on Spire of Fear?
I would say quite a bit. This is the first time I recorded an album like vocally at home.
Mm-hmm.
And so, recording during December and January in Portland is like the most oppressively Portland it can be, of course. And also being able to, like, on my friends' off days, like, people were just stopping by the studio while I was recording this album. So I was like surrounded by my friends, and my friends were giving me input and were around to be like this or that.
That sucks.
Exactly. Honestly.
Yeah.
Which is important.
But those are the best friends one can have, right?
Yes. And being like, I'm not sure about that. Maybe try this,
Yeah.
Cool. So it's the first time that I've been, like, writing a King Yosef album is like oppressively lonely when it comes to the demoing process. Generally speaking, when I write music, I'm by myself in this exact room. or in a studio and I'm just by myself. So like a track like Wither, you know, one of my friends was in town just visiting and he wanted to come up and I was like, I'm writing an album right now. So you can come hang out, but like I have a really crazy deadline. And I started writing. He was just like, we should work on something. We should write some music. And Wither, the whole front half of Wither is all me and my friend Kellen. And that's the first time like ever that somebody's really entered my space when it comes to King Yosef. So I guess that's what I mean by community record. Like I was the right people were around at the right times. I was in Portland, like, you know, my friends and, you know, my other band that I play with and write with, Misery Whip, was also recording their album on the off weeks of Spire of Fear being recorded. So when I wasn't there, I was with Misery Whip, you know, and I was being sent demos by all my friends for the music they're working on. It just felt like this really fertile time community wise of everybody just being really creative. And it was really like inspiring and intoxicating, you know. You're like, wow, we should just keep writing records forever. This is so fun.
Yeah, but then you never get money for anything you do.
Yeah.
But you also have guests on the record. It's not only like the input, but it's also the real collaboration. One of those that I like the most, I think it's one of the coolest collabs that I've heard in a long time, is Ryan from Holy Fawn. Doing
absolute sweetheart
on Glimmer. Yeah, first of all, Ryan is a sweetheart. That is
such a sweet,
undoubtedly right.
Yeah,
but it also just fits. So, how much free range did he have?
So the funny thing about that feature is I knew that somebody needed to sing right there.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that they needed to have airy vocals.
Yeah.
I knew that they like needed to be soft. And I thought some people it didn't work. And so the funniest part about this album is I had to turn it in by January 13th. And that date got moved up really crazy. It was supposed to be maybe like March you could turn it in. And Kurt, who mixed the album, was like, my schedule's getting like really full with some projects I can't say no to. January 13th is your day. So I went back into the studio like right after New Year's. Yeah. The second session for vocals was, I think, January 2nd, maybe January 3rd. And I had up until the 13th booked. And I think on the 9th or 10th, most everything was done except for that feature. And Holy Fawn had followed me on Instagram from the tour I did with Health last year. And I'm a huge Holy Fawn fan. Like Death Spells was
everybody should be. Everybody.
Yeah, when I found Death Spells, I was like, this is everything I've ever wanted in a band.
Yeah.
And so I was like, Ryan would be a really amazing fit for this record.
So we're still January 9th or 10th, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And 3 to 4 days till turn-in date. I have lyrics written for it. I had just like, you know, a bunch of lyrics. I cold DM'd Holy Fawn and I said, I know this is insane. I'm working on an album. I think Ryan's vocals would be perfect for it. Please let me know, you know, and if this is too much, absolutely let me know. It's no problem.
Yeah. And if you don't answer at all, it's also okay.
Exactly. Like I was like, I know this is an insane question. You know, we don't know each other. I'm asking you to feature on my work. Like that comes with a lot. And Ryan hit me back and was like, hey, send the track. Like I would love to listen to it. And I was like, cool. So he listens to it and he's like, yeah, this is awesome. I want in. And I was like, all right, here's the crazy part. I have to turn this album in 3 days. And I was like, I know that's insane. Can you do it? And he was like, yeah, don't worry about it. And so I sent him lyrics. We tried 2 different deliveries. And I was like, I trust you on the layering, like the harmonies, all that stuff. Do your thing. Because he was like, I don't know if I'll have enough time to like write lyrics that resonate right. So I was like, here's mine. We're good to go. And I think it was the next day he sent me the version 1. And then I was like, let's try it the other way. because it was twice as fast as it is now. And I felt terrible. I'm like, I'm asking you a huge favor. Like, please retrack. And then he retracted, and it was exactly as it is right now. And I think I got the finals of Ryan's part on the 12th.
Still 1 day to go.
Yeah, but
already...
he's so awesome. Like, the fact that he pulled it off, the fact that he was down, like, the way people have responded to it, because I was like, I know this is kind of weird and left field, but like, in my head, it makes sense. So,
well, is it left field? Is it unusual? Let's put it this way. It is a feature that makes an interesting record even more interesting because it's out of a box. And, again, if you had asked like the guys from Ministry to do it and they would have done it, then everybody would be like, oh yeah, that's the obvious way.
yeah, exactly.
I think it's an addition that makes a lot of sense because it doesn't make sense. As crazy
well, thank
as
you,
it sounds.
and thank Ryan.
Yeah. You've already hinted at it, and to clear it up for everybody who doesn't know, this record was mixed and engineered by somebody who we fortunately already had on the show, I think, 4 years ago. My goodness, I'm getting old. Something like 3 years ago. By the wonderful Kurt Ballou from a little-known band called Converge.
Yep.
How did that happen?
This is the craziest thing. So, like, one of the first tattoos...
You said that 2 minutes ago about...
Yeah. It is also the same kind of, like, insaneness, though, where it's like, you miss all the shots you don't take, I guess.
Yeah,
like, It could be the King Yosef story at this point. But, like, my first tattoo I got when I turned 18 was a Converge tattoo. Like,
okay, what kind of motif? Just the band logo or certain record elements of artwork?
It's a wandering woman, and it just says "All we love, we leave behind."
Okay,
yeah. So like, they're one of my all-time bands. Like, records that Kurt has produced and engineered have changed my life. The riffs he's written, like the songs he's been a part of, huge to me.
Yeah.
So I was like working into what would become the first King Yosef album, An Underlying Hum. And I was finally starting to get my footing where I felt confident enough to like maybe reach out to people that I admired like that. And I cold emailed Kurt. No references, no friends in common, nothing. And I just emailed him. I explained him my vision, my idea, what the crossroads were, what I wanted to do. And he emailed me back and was like, sounds awesome. Let's do it. And I was like, no fucking way. So once I went to the studio with him the first time, obviously it's like, he is just a guy, obviously. But to me and my young self, it's like he's the fucking dude.
Yeah,
like,
he's God.
He's the guy. And so it was really beautiful because even just on like the first record, he was like one of the first people that is like somebody I look up to or I admire their work, where we would come to a crossroads on the record and he'd be like, what do you think? Because this is your record and this is your vision. So trust what you think. And so we became fast friends from the first album because his sense of humor is great. And then I went back for 4 singles that I released at the beginning of last year. And that was the closest we had come to like what was in my head for what King Yosef is. And I told him that. And I was like, album 2, like, do you want to do it? And he was like, absolutely. And so we kind of had the palette of like, we'd worked really hard on those singles and finding the balance because he's really organic with the way he mixes. His mixes sound like a band in front of your face. And obviously what I'm bringing to the table is very inorganic and is so like mechanical that finding the balance between the two, I think it took like those couple singles. But once we struck it, it was like, there's nobody else I would do it with at this point because one, he's a good friend now, and he also like understands my vision, I think, more than most people. Um, and so yeah, went back for album two, and he and Zach, his assistant, who also works at God City, like both just like get where I'm coming from. Whereas I feel like if I went and recorded with a new person now, it's like to explain what King Yosef is musically is like,
Yeah.
you know, it's like industrial with like metal and with like hip hop and with like trip hop and like shoegaze and like, you can't rebuilding that palette with somebody would be an uphill battle from hell.
I
So
totally get what you mean. Yeah.
yeah, so the camaraderie for one, and also his like respect to my work and like understanding and how much he like shows up for me to make it what it is like,
Yeah.
you know, to be able to do that with somebody I've looked up to for so long is very crazy. And
Yeah.
he's great.
And then let me guess, the guy who in the end mastered your record, a Grammy
Yep.
Award winner, by the way, Alan Douche. I'm very sure the way you describe your approach, it's basically the same thing, right? So you know that you want to work with him, but you probably don't know if he would, and then all of a sudden he agrees, right?
What's funny is Alan being the mastering engineer, because Kurt was really adamant on an underlying hum that he was like, who's going to master it? I said, I don't know. And he sent me 3 different people and was like, these are the people I think that should do it.
Yeah.
And Alan was one of them. And obviously I looked at Alan's work and was like, wow, like not only Jane Doe, but like, huge records that are like records I've loved. And yeah, when it came time for Spire of Fear, like I had Arthur Rizek master the last 4 singles just to kind of like get out of the box and test things.
Yeah.
And I still loved those, but when it came to how dynamic Spire of Fear was going to be, I knew that I was like, I need somebody who's going to like be a nerd about it and be obsessive like I am. And Alan was that way all the way through. Like, because for most bands, you have like 9 heavy songs, 1 soft song.
Yeah, that's not your record.
Yeah, you can kind of generalize like mastering and be like, okay, if I can get these 3 songs to sound right, then like most of the record's going to sound good. Whereas like Alan and I working together, every single song has a different mastering chain. And he's crafting it, and it's like, okay, well, hey, I tried to do an analog sort of master on this using outboard gear, and here's the digital I did as well. Please tell me which direction you like more on this track. And then we would go through revisions. So yeah, Alan's a dream to work with. He is such a sweet guy. Like, he's also one of those people, same as Kurt, where like I admired his work, and then also he understood my vision. Like, he was like, oh, like I understand, like you're pulling from this thing and that thing. I've never heard that combo together. And I was like, yep, we have to continue to work together because other people do not understand that.
Yeah. I think the problem is, if one has a record that is not boxable, that is not one specific genre or 2 or 3, nowadays people get confused. And I think with both of these people, they know certain boxes to the T, but they're also open to check out other boxes or unusual combinations of boxes. That's definitely something that works.
100%.
And that is also something that is one of the main ingredients of your record. Another ingredient, or you've already hinted at it, is that now King Yosef is, for lack of a better word, a real band, a real also live intentional band. I've read somewhere that there is this certain change, something about like 2 years ago. Can you describe that moment, or do you still remember that moment when you were like, okay, I have now done a lot of work in hip hop, I've done a lot of work in this genre, I've done my way, but now I want to take this baby on tour?
Yeah. Right before An Underlying Hum came out, I started touring King Yosef, and it was like fun and it was a good time, but I definitely hit this moment where it was like people were not understanding it. like it's guy with computer. It's like kind of the vision I could sense people were getting from the music. And I was like, okay, so the only way to make people understand is going to be to get in front of them. And like, because a King Yosef live show definitely has more in common with like hardcore and metal than it does with industrial and like a bedroom project. And so I definitely saw that as the way that I was like, I feel like the music's getting good enough that I feel confident in it. But in order to get people to watch it live and then go re-listen to the record so they understand the context now, it's only going to happen through touring. So an Underlying Hum came out. We did like a couple shows, and then a good friend of mine offered us the opening slot on a Godflesh date, which was, dream come true. We did 2 shows with Godflesh, and then it just like steep decline where I did not know what the next move was. And I was like, I need to get out. Like, we need to get on the road. I need to write new music. Like, I need to keep reinventing this and make it in the context that I understand it needs to be translated so people can understand where I'm coming from. And lo and behold, who comes out and, takes us on tour is Converge. And so we got offered to do a week-long run with them. And that was like a real proving ground for me. Just, playing a concert is so much different than recording an album. How do you engage with the crowd? How do you present yourself? Like, what is the feeling you're trying to give? And while we're on that tour, we were at the point where I was like, I don't know how we're going to keep touring. I don't know who wants to take us out, etc. We're on that tour. And I think on the second date of that tour, Health emailed and was like, do you want to do a full US tour with us? And I was like, yes, I guess, absolutely. And then Australia offered to us, and then Trace Amount worked out Japan based off of Australia. And then while we're doing this, Roadburn comes in. Like, it just all started to fall in a line. Like, it was like, I don't know what the work is other than going out and suffering on your own, because we were touring DIY with our friends, playing to 5 people in cities nobody's ever heard of, for, almost 2 years before all of this. And randomly, it's like as if, the people that are not above you, but, like ahead of you in their careers, they see you putting in that work and they offer you the hand if you keep putting your, nose to the grindstone. And so, yeah, it really is born, though, out of the context of me being like I enjoy performing the music live. It's the only time that like the songs live to me. And so I knew that we had to get the live show more and more and more and more dialed. So that way people understood the context of the music. So that way it wasn't just like bedroom producer, at-home project, recorded an album,
Then, of course, the question must be, how much did you think about putting these songs on stage when you were writing them?
I think, hearkening back to something you said earlier about trimming the fat of the record, I felt that way contextually about them live as well. Like, an Underlying Hum has songs on it where it's not that I couldn't perform them live, but I don't know how well they would work in the context of live music because there's so much going on.
Yeah.
Spire of Fear, it wasn't like a checklist at the front, but it was definitely a checklist at the end where I was like, could these all be performed live? Yes or no? And to me, every single one of these songs could be. And, playing live shows influences how you write music regardless of anything. When you realize like, oh, this one tempo makes a crowd interact. Yeah. Like if the right energy is involved there, I understand that tempo is a good tempo for the feeling that I want it. It's not like writing in the context of being like, oh, I'm going to write at this tempo because I want a good live show. It's more like as I'm writing, that's a tool in the tool belt that I understand will work contextually. Yeah,
it's more of like you write and you recognize, oh yeah, that might work.
Yeah. maybe I bumped the BPM up like 5,
Yeah. Last question or last set of questions before we come to the infamous quickfire round at the end. We've already talked about the community that has helped you on this record, but something that we have not touched is your sense of community spirit when it comes to the location that you are in, Portland, Oregon, because you and your label have set out to support the community of musicians in Portland. Can you maybe, for those who don't know, quickly explain how you and Bleakhouse Records want to help the community in Portland?
I think a huge thing is one, people make weird music and it doesn't actually get a spotlight. That's a huge part of Bleakhouse. People love to say that they love avant-garde or weird or, crazy things, but in reality, like nobody's willing to take a risk on that.
Yeah.
So having a home for those sorts of things, where my friends who I believe in their music wholeheartedly, like we can financially put stuff behind it and basically exhaust any resources we have, connections wise or whatever, to get them out and watch them develop and grow. That's a huge part of Bleak House, but also like things change at home, is how I feel about it. And so like growing up in Oregon, not in Portland, I was part of a scene where like it died every couple of years.
Mhm.
There'd be a ton of live shows and like local bands, and then it would die. And then it would come back for a year and then it would die. And so
Nothing sustainable.
Nothing sustainable at all. And so I think like my goal is to like occupy spaces that are more maybe like industry and make them meet us on our terms, because like the sentiment of Bleak House, or not Bleak House but Bleak Fest, like this recent one we did it at a venue that's like a huge staple in our city. And that venue, generally speaking, and those promoters do not put any of these bands on that, like any show there. But all of these kids can play at a, warehouse skate park and sell the room to like 450 kids.
Mhm.
And so it's a lack of investment on the old guard's part to look at what they have in front of them and not being able to capitalize on it. And so a huge part of it is one, trying to make those people aware, trying to make sure that they understand that like we're here. We're a part of this community. A lot of these young bands are the reason these kids have gotten into concerts and are going to their shows.
Yeah.
And then also it's like archival work for me, because, if you start looking at regional history of music, generally it's pretty dominated by like 5 bands that people cared about.
Unless you are in like a big city. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, exactly. And so like the other side of it is too, is it's like the sentiment of Bleak House is like you have to give something to get something, but you can participate in any way, whether it's buying a shirt, going to a show, talking about one of the bands, whatever it is, like that's the level of participation that's needed. So we started the DIY initiative, which is basically just that like we take percentages of sales each quarter, bi-yearly, and donate them to causes that people want to see. So the first one we're doing is called Doomtown Youth Volume 1. And all it is young artists in the city. And we're going to put out a 7-inch. And we're going to assume the cost with the help of everybody buying merch. And then basically these kids get presses of their music for the first time ever at no cost to them, that they get to go sell, make profit, and hopefully continue on making music, because, it's not cheap. It's not easy, especially when you're young.
But none of these artists that you want to feature in that way then have to sign to Bleakhouse.
Nope. Zero obligation to us. The only thing that we are going to do
maybe a little thank you.
Yeah, exactly. But outside of that, like we are going to host the online sales with enough of the catalog that it just recoups our costs. So if it takes 50 copies of the 7-inch to us to break even, not even
Okay.
profit, then that's what we will hold on the store. But
Will you then also make a subscription available to these special releases? Because I think, like Portland is not a huge city, but I think that there will be like a few dozen people who would automatically say, okay, that's a cool thing. I want to support that in general, no matter what the music is.
yeah, I've definitely thought about, as Bleakhouse continues, I definitely want it
Like
to
the
expand
Bleak House
outside of music.
Singles Club.
100%. Yeah, I've thought about like, it's hard because I've thought about doing like a Patreon and those sorts of things for Bleakhouse, where it's like you're a part of this. These are the things you automatically get upon release anytime they come out by supporting this.
Yeah.
But it's wanting to sustain like things that I feel are worth people giving their money to all the time is hard to execute, because if I do a subscription and then we have 8 months where we don't have any new young bands that want to record, I don't want people giving their money for that or things that I feel aren't worthwhile.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I was just thinking, like make a subscription for that cause in specific, where like maybe only every 2, 3, 4 months you pay. But I know what you mean.
Yeah, like so that is a big part of the things that we're working on right now. Is it's like, how do we develop further to foster a sense of community, but it also doesn't need to just be Portland based. Like I want to continue to expand it so that way it's the Bleak House thing can extend to other communities as well.
But would you still try to keep it, let's say, West Coast, or would you be open to do any spot like the East Coast, India, Pakistan? I don't know.
Yeah, I would be open to it being anywhere. It would be like Portland's the home.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but it can
Portland
travel.
is the hub.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I feel about it.
Yeah, and I mean, like there, of course, the possibilities of globalization and the internet hit in a very positive way. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so it's like if somebody in London who releases music, or they're from some tiny town
Germany,
in Germany, like whether if they are willing to live by the principles of like what it means to do Bleak House things and foster a sense of community and put on for your local scene, for your local causes, then it's like, to me, it's fair that those people would be able to like be a part of it,
Yeah, and painting your house bleakly gray is not enough.
Yeah, exactly.
I think we should mention. Joseph, thanks for all the insight into the record, into also what you are trying to do for the community, and also how you were one of those lucky bastards who was able to work with the right people at the right time. And that's something that, sometimes the incidents are one of the coolest things ever. Nobody leaves a Veil of Sound interview without the quick fire round, so you also have to do that. And I've seen that you recorded a video close to one of my early childhood heroes' homes, Kurt Cobain.
Oh, yeah.
So I have to give you two important Nirvana records. Okay. In Utero versus Bleach.
In Utero. Mm-hmm. Yeah, point to prove. He was specifically trying to commit commercial suicide while writing amazing songs.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you write a song that's called "I Hate Myself and I Want to Die," then back in the '90s that would not sell. And that's also a reason why I think it's only on the Beavis and Butthead Experience. But yeah, I know what you mean.
Yep.
Yeah, or also like Rape Me.
Yeah, crazy song title. And it still was selling so well. Yeah,
Frances Bean will have her revenge on...
Yeah.
But I know what you mean. We have talked about Godflesh. And of course, there are two sides to Broderick's project. There is this clearly industrial side, but there is also the dub side. Which one would you rather listen to right now? One of Godflesh's dub tracks or the industrial stuff right now?
Dub tracks.
Cool.
Yep. I love the breakbeats.
That's good because it gives me a chance to get to FX Twin. I'll give you two tracks. Window Licker versus Come to Daddy.
Window Licker.
That
Yeah,
video is just unbeatable.
I've studied that song, dude. Hundreds of times I've listened to that song. I still don't understand how he did it. I don't know how that song was made. Like, Come to Daddy, I can reason with. I can be like, oh, I understand what he was doing. That song, it's still light years ahead of everything. So
Yeah. Yeah, it's also it's one of those moments in the 90s that I think changed music a lot, and especially electronic music. And
we live in his shadow still, I think.
it's interesting that you
People
mentioned It's interesting that you mentioned Shadow, because that would be the other electronic based DJ from the 90s that I would always drop, DJ Shadow, because introducing
Oh,
this
yeah.
changed everything. Yeah. Let's not talk about the old guys in the war. Let's talk about your love for shoegazy, industrial influenced hardcore. Let's talk about the Deftones.
Okay.
Back to School versus Passenger.
Wow. Back to School.
We've talked about you having done work with hip hop artists, and of course, maybe the most important thing for a good hip hop track is the beat. Not in general, but right now in this moment of your life, do you have a preference for organically produced or electronically produced beats? If it is possible to say.
If it's possible to say, I'll say electronic, because like everything I'm listening to right now is Detroit rap music.
Mm-hmm.
And that's hyper new style of production. And it's very electronic. It's very fast. It's very over the top.
Yeah.
I was worried you were going to ask me like my favorite instrumental of all time or something and make me pick. I was like, oh God, oh God.
No. You've worked with the wonderful Youth Code.
Yep.
So you have to choose between their self-titled record and Commitment to Complication.
I'm going Commitment, because the breakdown on transitions is insane. That's like one of the heaviest moments in electronic music in years.
Mm-hmm. We've talked about hip hop beats. Now I want to give you rappers. And I'm going old school. Cool. Which hip hop act, because of its lyricism and rapping, do you like more? Eric B. and Rakim or Gangstar?
Eric B. and Rakim.
Wrong.
Let the Rhythm Hit Him is like one of the craziest.
It's always Gangstar. There is no.
Here's my problem. Gangstar is amazing. Obviously, they're, always going to be in the conversation of forever. But how conscious it gets for me sometimes is too much. Whereas, like, I can. So I do love it for what it is. But if I'm just going to turn something on.
Yeah.
Like, the beat on Let the Rhythm Hit 'Em is one of the best instrumentals of all time. Like, that song is, like, I heard that instrumental when I was young and was like, this is what it should all sound like. This is what every rap beat should sound like. So
I have two more. One is, I think, an obvious one. 9 Inch Nails. Pretty Hate Machine versus, and I'm not going to give you the Downward Spiral, but I'm going to give you the Fragile.
Yeah, the Fragile. Like, okay. I think, obviously we're talking like men amongst gods things here. So my opinion's only so valid, but I think Pretty Hate Machine still has a lot of things that I'm sure he would fix or change now if he could. Whereas the Fragile feels like this grand journey of spirit to me. And, the worst song on the Fragile versus the worst song on Pretty Hate Machine, the Fragile takes it by a landslide.
Yeah, I also would say that the worst track on the Fragile versus one of the more middle level tracks on Pretty Hate Machine would still outdo it. But I know what you mean. Yeah. But it's still the question whether Reznor would rework it or whether he says like, no, that's exactly what it was at the time. But I know what you mean.
I feel like the lyric, how could you leave me like this after you just taught me how to kiss? I feel like he would go back and rework that line on Pretty Hate Machine nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, like, look at the guy's wife.
Yeah.
She's a 13 out of 10.
Shouts out Mary Queen.
Yeah. I mean, like, of course, I have to give out a shout to my woman because she's a 15 out of 10. But otherwise,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, you would say, and of course, your woman is also a 15 out of 10. So, like,
Yeah.
last one, and I'm not sure how I got to that one, but my mind works in mysterious ways that even I don't understand. I'll give you Radiohead.
Ooh.
In Rainbows versus Kid A.
Wow. Kid A.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, what's funny is I'm more of an OK Computer guy.
But I know what you mean.
But between the two, Kid A.
Yeah, I think it also depends. I guess that I'm a little older than you. How old are you?
28.
Yeah.
What's funny is
you could be my son.
A huge Radiohead record for me is Amnesiac.
Yeah.
Pyramid Song.
Just 1 second. I'm normally not one to buy reissues, but when this little baby came out,
yep, absolutely,
it was not a question. It was not a question.
Pyramid Song is one of those tracks that I still like. All these years later, still re-listen to, and I'm like, it's so simple. It executes so well. Like how they do it, how they make it sound good.
But what I wanted to say is, being the old guy in this conversation, I still remember listening to Pablo Honey and thinking, okay, it's a good record. And that was in the middle of the 90s. I still remember listening to the bands and thinking like, oh, this is a much better record. I remember not listening to OK Computer when it was released. I listened to it a few weeks or months later, but I remember the feeling sitting down in my room, putting it on and thinking like, shit, that is like, shit, Michael Stipe is right when he back then said like, okay, Radiohead is a band that is frighteningly good. And I still remember when they put out Kid A, because I thought I was listening to a wrong band. And then with the second spin, I got it. Okay, this is the same band, but doing the same stuff. And the same stuff is like, we don't give a fuck. That was a record that gave everybody so much to think about. I still remember looking at the CD case and thinking like, shit, there's something behind the inlay. Take it apart and you find the second booklet. And I'm like, oh, fuck.
That's so sick.
Yeah. And ever since then, ever since then, I had a different way of looking at CD cases ever.
There's certain records that are on my like pillar of like, I really wish I could experience the cultural shift that happened as they came out.
And that is exactly what I want.
Yeah. And like Downward Spiral is one of those ones. Like that record as a platinum record is psychotic. Like, I can't imagine that coming out and what that sounded contextually like when Pearl Jam and like, those bands are dominating through just like traditional rock music. And then this thing comes out of nowhere and shifts everything.
Yeah. I mean, like, and it was a gateway band for many of my friends and me. We were reading interviews and all of a sudden the guy is referencing a band like Neubauten that we had heard about. And we were like, okay, if he likes it, we'll give it a listen. And then through Neubauten, you discover so much more music. It was a snowball system that mainstream grunge music just simply couldn't give you.
Yep.
And I think those are two bands which were really able to shift cultural understanding of music twice. Radiohead did it with those two records, with OK Computer and Kid A. Nine Inch Nails did it twice with the Downward Spiral and the Fragile. And I think that's a very random thing, that a band is able to shift musical experience, cultural expectations twice.
Yeah. I think when I think about it in the context of we had Guns N' Roses, and within less than 10 years, the Prodigy is like headlining festivals.
Yeah, don't get me started on the Prodigy headlining festivals. I once had that fortune, and it was one of the shittiest headlining shows that
But
I've ever seen.
that's
But I
like
know what you mean.
culturally, like that's insane.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
to go from like, hell yeah, Sunset Strip,
yeah.
fast cars and
You're
women
the
and
best
drinking
crowd that we ever played.
to like, you know, window
Fire
lickers coming out towards the end of the 90s is like
Yeah,
such a shift.
yeah. Another band who was able to do that, I'm very sure you would agree, was Dillinger Escape Plan, but only for a
Oh yeah.
niche. But unfortunately, only for a niche group of people. That is the difference between those other two.
Yeah. I an underlying hum was recorded with Steve Evans on the vocal side. And he gave me an insight to calculating infinity, and that's all recorded to tape.
Okay.
And that was like that blew my mind even more. Yeah, there wasn't a Dillinger album made in Pro Tools digitally until 2000, until Miss Machine, I think.
I was about to say that. That is probably the one that I would have guessed. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. Before we nerd out too much, remember we already said we have to do another interview just dissecting one track alone. And
Yep.
before we do that, you have to give me a list of the samples that you used. Everybody, listen to Spire of Fear. As I said, it's a grower and a catcher at the same time. Give it a few spins. And otherwise, there is not a lot to say apart from thank you. Really cool record.
Thank you.
Really cool interview. Yeah, and then enjoy the rest of your day, my friend.
Yeah, you as well.
Yeah, football.